We are at the end of our season of Advent here at Peace, and we're right in the middle of the prophecy with which we started the season of Advent. If you weren't with us on December 1st, that's okay. I'm going to catch you up because you probably have very little idea of what I'm talking about. So let me give you a little bit of a biblical history lesson. You see, our text for this evening is Isaiah 9. And Isaiah 9 is right in the middle of a prophecy that begins in Isaiah 7 and goes through about Isaiah 12. The prophet of God, Isaiah, is talking to King Ahaz, the king of Judah, as he has an incredibly difficult decision to make for him and his people. The land of Israel, what God had promised to Abraham in Genesis 15, what he freed the Hebrew people from slavery in Egypt to enter into and to conquer, that, the promised land of Israel is actually split into two separate kingdoms at this point in history. There's Judah to the south, and there's Israel to the north. The king of Israel in the north had made an alliance with Syria, which is along the Mediterranean Sea, to face Assyria, which is to the north and the east of Israel. Because Assyria wanted to invade Israel, Syria, and Judah. So Israel and Syria, as you can imagine, wanted to make that alliance with Judah to protect them from that invasion, but God specifically told King Ahaz to not make that alliance and to trust in his protection for the kingdom of Judah. Yet King Ahaz, under tremendous political pressure, as I would have ventured to guess that many of us would do, caves. And he forms this alliance with Israel and Syria, and therefore God, through his prophet Isaiah, told Ahaz of the coming destruction, desolation, and exile that was going to befall the kingdom of Judah and Israel because of their idolatry and their trust in earthly powers. All of the expectations of an excellent reign as king come crashing down. It's probably not the pick-me-up Merry Christmas message you were hoping for tonight. Sorry about that. Let me ask you, though. Have you ever planned an event that didn't go exactly as you planned it to go? Like, I'm going to throw out a hypothetical situation here. Maybe you planned a family gathering that was going to involve lots of food that family from all over the country traveled to be a part of, and that maybe you were going to exchange gifts at this hypothetical family gathering. And then, maybe you had expectations, it was going to be a simple kind of thing where everybody's going to wear matching Christmas sweaters, and there were going to be Instagram-worthy centerpieces on the table, and the food was going to smell so good for hours that it was going to make everybody's stomach growl the whole time that you're cooking it. And then, just a little thing that after dinner, right, you would go take that family portrait because you're all in matching Christmas sweaters and you haven't done a family portrait in over 10 years. Yeah, it's no big deal, right? No big deal. But then wouldn't it be cool, though, is as you walked outside to take that family portrait, all of a sudden it started to snow, even though it is North Texas, right? And not only does it snow, but then we get feet of snow. And so you take this beautiful white Christmas kind of family portrait, and then you start throwing snowballs at each other after you take the picture where everybody has smiled, and nobody starts crying because nobody gets hit in the eye with that spontaneous snowball flying at their faces, right? And then, you get to go inside. It'll be a little thing. You'll go inside, and there will be enough hot chocolate to go around, and everybody will get to sit around the gaslit log fireplace, and it'll be this beautiful setting where you'll sing beautiful Christmas carols, and then you'll pass out gifts, and nobody's going to be disappointed by the gifts they get. Hypothetically, of course. Most of the women are laughing because they're the ones that plan that event in their heads. Yeah, how was that let down, by the way, when it didn't happen that way? Maybe you didn't set your expectations quite that high for the event. But nonetheless, it would have been nice. It would have been nice if Joe and his wife and kids would have shown up this year like they promised they were going to. And you know, it would have been nice if Susie and her family could have actually smiled for that family portrait. Just once. Just one smile. And it would have been really nice if Uncle Bob didn't get drunk and make all those awkward comments. Or if Billy could have been here this year instead of in prison. You know, it also would have been really nice if Josie had been able to have the strength to fight just a little bit longer. Maybe she could have been here for Christmas too. Every year of our lives is filled with unmet expectations. It's filled with disappointments. It's filled with burdens. It's filled with 2x4s, even though sometimes they seem like 4x4s that come out of nowhere. Now imagine that you're King Ahaz. And all of the dreams and expectations that you had of your reign as king come crashing down as the prophet of God is telling you what is about to happen to you and to your people. But he's telling you that it's actually going to last for longer than a year. It's going to last for at least 2 generations worth of time. And then imagine being the people of God enduring that reality of the prophecy in those 2+ generations, and even more after that, with the fulfillment of the prophecy taking over 700 years to come to fruition. Because you see, King Ahaz received this prophecy, which starts with desolation, destruction, and suffering, somewhere around 780 BC. But we know its fulfillment doesn't come for another 780+ years until Christ appears. But look how Isaiah begins the denouement of the prophecy. You remember that term from grammar? The beginning of the end, so to speak. Right in the middle, in Isaiah chapter 9, he says this: "The people who have walked in darkness have seen a great light, and those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them has light shone. For you have multiplied the nation, you have increased its joy. They rejoice before you as with joy at the harvest, as they are glad when they divide the spoil. For the yoke of his burden and the staff for his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor you have broken, as on the day of Midian. For every boot of the tramping warrior in battle tumult, and every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end, on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this." Isaiah 9 is a message of hope. And it's a message of hope given right after the overwhelming reality check of what's going to happen because of Judah and Israel's unfaithfulness and their idolatry. We learn a few things in Isaiah 9. But what we begin to realize is that the suffering and the anguish of God's people because of their sin and unfaithfulness, the suffering and anguish that we have because of our own sin and our own unfaithfulness, God has always had a plan for that. His plan has always been to come to us, to be our Emmanuel, to be God with us. His plan was to always come into our midst, experience this life that we live, to die for our sinfulness, so that he could redeem us and he could set us free. His plan has always been to bring hope and everlasting life in his own resurrected life. Because there's nothing about our life and experience that has ever caught God off guard. Has our sin diminished his light and love in our life? Yes. Has our own selfishness and our own idolatry shadowed and perverted his truth and his goodness in our hearts? Yes. Has our sinfulness ever caused God to leave us forsaken and forgotten? No. Resoundingly, no. Because God does not walk away from us. He does not leave us to suffer alone in the midst of a failed party. He doesn't throw up his hands and just give up on us. When Uncle Bob, proverbially, of course, gets too wild, God doesn't try to push him into the corner and hide the shame of it. Instead, God reconciles. He restores. He heals. He forgives. When Joe and his wife refuse to show up yet again, God doesn't write them off and begin the estrangement process out of the family. Instead, he goes into the cold and he searches for them and he brings them back into the warmth of the family. And when Susie and her family make snarky comment after snarky comment after snarky comment, see, God doesn't respond with impatience and disrespect. Interestingly enough, instead, he overcomes with kindness. As we celebrate tonight, God has not forsaken or forgotten us. Instead, he has come to us. And as he has come to us, he has brought to us life and salvation and hope and his very own life and death and resurrection. So maybe, just maybe, our Christmas celebrations with our families, with our friends, or maybe even in solitude, while they may not be exactly what we are expecting or wanting, we can trust that in Jesus Christ, they are always filled with hope and peace and love and joy. To God alone be the glory, now and always. Merry Christmas.